I have counted ration chits for 11 years, and I can tell you the exact weight of a lie by how it sits in a man's hand. The Dominion taught me that without meaning to. They put me behind a window at the edge of the Kessa depot, gave me a stamp and a ledger, and told me my job was simple. Feed the registered, log the numbers, ask no names. Names slow down a supply line, numbers don't. The laborers came through my window at dawn, gray with cold, gray with the dust that never left that moon, and I learned to read them the way you learn to read weather. Which ones were still fighting? Which ones had stopped? The guards called them by digit and rank, 6, 12, Registry 9, and most answered to it by the third week, the way anything answers to what it's called long enough. 9 didn't. She came to my window on a morning cold enough to crack stone, and when the guard behind her barked her number, she didn't flinch, didn't turn, didn't do the small automatic thing the others did. She just looked at me, and I understood I was being measured, not the other way around. She was Thenar, pale gray skin with a blue undertone like dusk on old snow, her hair cropped close to the skull, the way the Dominion cropped all of them, for lice, they said, for order. Her eyes were the part they couldn't shave off, large, dark, near black, and steady in a way that made the guards uncomfortable, though none of them could have told you why. I gave her the standard ration, half a bread square, water chit, protein paste. She took it without thanks, without hurry, and said, in trade tongue rougher than mine, you weigh it wrong. I looked down. The scale read true. Everyone else's is short, she said. Mine is short too. You weigh it wrong on purpose, so it looks fair when the inspector comes. It is not fair. It is theater. The guard laughed and told her to move along before he found her a real complaint. She moved along, but she was right, and I spent that whole night thinking about a woman with a shaved head and a stolen name who watched a ration scale closer than the men paid to watch it. I started splitting my own bread the next morning. It's a small thing. I want to be honest about how small it was. Half a square of grain paste isn't a rebellion, isn't a rescue, isn't anything the histories will remember. I only had one supper's worth to give, and I gave half of it to Registry 9 at the window, folded under her water chit where the guard wouldn't see, 3 days running, and on the 4th day she looked at me and said, why? Because you were right about the scale, I said, and because 9 isn't your name. She went very still. You don't know my name. No, I said, but I know it isn't 9. She took her ration and left, and I thought that was the end of it. The way a man thinks a door has closed when really it's only stopped swinging. There was a night early on when a junior guard decided 9's steadiness was insolence and meant to teach her otherwise with the back of his hand. I stepped out from behind my window before I'd decided to. A clerk has no standing to intervene in depot discipline, and I knew it even as I was doing it, and told him the inspector's audit was due within the hour, and he'd do well to have his line quiet and unmarked for it. It wasn't true. But bureaucracy is its own kind of armor if you wear it with enough confidence. And he lowered his hand and moved off muttering, and 9 looked at me across the yard with an expression I couldn't yet read. I told myself I'd done it to protect the depot's numbers, not the woman standing in front of them. I didn't believe myself even then. It went on like that for 2 months. Half a bread square, a folded chit. Once, when the frost took the depot roof, and the workers stood in the open for 4 hours waiting on a train that never came, I found a reason to prop the storeroom door and let the line drift a few at a time into the warmth, logging it as inventory delay so the guards wouldn't ask why the numbers ran slow. Small mercies, badly hidden. I was never brave. I was only paying attention, which the Dominion had not trained out of me the way it trained everything else. She started talking to me at the window. Not much. A sentence. Sometimes 2. While the guard's back was turned. She told me the Thenar built their houses to face east because their old sun rose weak and they liked to catch what light there was. She told me the crop failures on the outer ring weren't crop failures at all, but Dominion requisition dressed up as bad weather. She told me things a registry laborer should not have known, and I filed that away the same careful way I filed everything, and said nothing, because saying something felt like the one way I could still lose her. The morning the transit manifest came through, 300 laborers reassigned to the interior mines, a one-way document if I'd ever read one. I forged a medical exemption for Registry 9 before I'd decided to do it. My hands did it faster than my sense could catch up and argue me out of it. I listed a respiratory condition the depot doctor never checked closely enough to disprove, stamped it with a stamp I wasn't supposed to have kept a copy of, and slid it into the outgoing file where it would sit quietly until someone with more courage than sense could get her out through the maintenance corridor instead of onto that train. That someone was me, 3 nights later, at an hour when the checkpoint ran on one board sentry and a schedule I had memorized out of 11 years of watching schedules. She was waiting exactly where I'd told her, in the dark behind the grain silos, and when I reached her she didn't say thank you. She said, "Why does a rations clerk know how to forge a medical stamp?" "Because I've been doing it for other numbers longer than I've been doing it for you," I said. "You're not the first exemption I've written. You're the first one I couldn't stop thinking about." She was quiet a long moment, and in that silence, something in her posture changed. Not fear, not the guardedness I'd watched her wear for 2 months, but something settling, some weight she'd been holding coming down off her shoulders because she'd decided, finally, to set it somewhere. "My name," she said, "is Coraine Vel Thenar. Before the occupation, they called me by a longer version of that name, and they knelt when they said it." I understood. Then, all at once, why the guards had never quite been able to break her the way they broke the others. Why she stood like weather, instead of like a woman, waiting to be told what to do. "I know what you are," I said. "I don't need the rest of the name to know it." "Most men who learn it start kneeling," she said, "or start bargaining. I would rather you did neither." "I split my bread with you for 2 months before I knew," I said. "I'm not going to start kneeling now that I do." That was the whole of it. No crown, no court, no army waiting in the dark to fall in behind her. Just a clerk and a queen with a shaved head, standing in the cold behind a Dominion grain silo, and something passing between us that had nothing to do with rank. I got her through the maintenance corridor before the sentry's rotation turned. At the tree line, where the depot lights gave out and the free dark of the unoccupied hills began, she stopped and turned back, and pressed something small and hard into my palm. A bird, carved from grain silo wood with a pocket knife's patience, its wings barely begun, unfinished the way everything in that depot was unfinished. "I carved this at the ration window," she said, "on the nights you weren't looking. I didn't have a name to give you in return for the bread. I only had this." "Your name was enough," I said. "The bird is more than I earned." "Come with me," she said, "or wait for me. I'll send for you either way, Joran Voss, and I won't call you by a number when I do." I stayed. Someone still needed to sit behind that window and slow the numbers down for whoever came through it next. But I keep the bird in my coat, its wings still unfinished, and some nights, alone at the depot after the last chit is logged, I take it out, and I think about a woman who wouldn't answer to 9, and I wait for the word that isn't a number either.